Quality 6, lose your intellect. Intellect is good for calculus, but it kills life. Don't be one of these eggheads who sits around all day and overthinks what is being said. Kids don't play by the rules. They do what they feel. Now, let me explain that, because I'm not just saying that you need to do whatever you want. What I'm saying is, trust your heart. Remember, this is rock and roll. When I was studying music in college, we had tons of really great players. Actually, to use the word player isn't really correct. What we had were some great technicians. If you wanted them to play something that was written down, they did a great job. They had amazing technique and the delivery was perfect. And if you wanted them to run through some scales or technical exercises, you'd be amazed at what they could do. To get to this level of ability, these guys would live in the practice room, going through the same measure of music until it was absolutely perfect, and then moving on to the next until they had completed the entire song. On the other hand, there were guys studying music who rarely ever practiced. They were out living, hanging out with friends, going to shows, and doing anything but sitting in a practice room. What those guys did with music was amazing. They didn't overthink it, they just did it. And these were the guys who were doing the best, at least from a business perspective. Was what they did as perfect as the technicians? No, but rock and roll isn't perfect, which is what makes it so cool. Rock and roll has no intellect. It isn't about singing a note, analyzing it, making the slight correction, analyzing it again, and finishing it off precisely at the right moment. Rock and roll is about singing the note and using your heart to guide whether it's correct or not. It's about feeling, passion, and conviction. You've got to stop thinking to do it. Successful music business people approach their promotions, management, booking, and other tasks like this. Everything you know about the music business, check it at the door. It's important that you have experiences to build on, but don't get caught up in those. Think about how it was when you didn't play. Do you remember what it was like not being able to play? Do you remember what it was like when you didn't know any of the rules, so you broke all of them? Not knowing the rules is the only reason I'm in this business right now. When I was a senior in college, I had a project, sort of like a thesis, to complete before I was able to graduate. I don't remember the exact details, but more or less I was given an imaginary budget, a timeline, and told to sell records. I had a mentor in college who was really good at booking shows and making money on his own, so I wrote a program based on what he did that more or less involved getting in the van, touring selected markets, advertising using direct response methods, and building up a fan base one person at a time. This was a big project, and I had to meet with my advisor every couple of weeks to let him see my progress. I took the first version in, he read through it, and he failed me. "This'll never work," he said. "Give me the Tiffany shopping mall tour. I want something big, something that will sell records." I really wanted to graduate, so I ended up coming up with something big, costly, and with absolutely no return on investment. In fact, I went overboard just to make it as ridiculous as possible, and he loved it. Now here's the funny part. As you may know, I started my company while I was still in college, and all that time I was making money showing bands how to get in the van, tour selected markets, use direct response advertising methods, and build up a fan base one person at a time. The exact same thing that he had failed me on. Does it make sense that you can keep your costs down, work with high profit margins, and make money in the music business? Yeah, that makes sense. But did it make sense that some college kid with basically no music business experience could start a company and make money going against everything his music business professors were teaching him? No way. Had I stopped to think about how crazy it was for some kid to think he could make money that way, I would have never done it. And had I stopped to think about the competition I was going up against, the hundreds of other companies that I thought were doing the same thing, I never would have done it. To do life right, you need to approach it like you've never done it before. You can't get caught up in past experiences, and you can't get caught up in the rules. Ray Bradbury said it best. He said, if we listened to our intellect, we'd never have a love affair. We'd never have a friendship. We'd never go into business because we'd be cynical. It's going to go wrong. Or she's going to hurt me. Or, I've had a couple of bad love affairs, so therefore. Well, that's nonsense. You're going to miss life. You've got to jump off the cliff all the time and build your wings on the way down. And I agree with Ray Bradbury. You have got to jump off the cliff all the time. Don't take anything for granted, and don't just go through the motions. And don't play it safe. Don't be the 50-year-old woman sitting in her condo on a Saturday night with 8 cats and a half gallon of Ben & Jerry's. Don't be afraid to take chances.